Hi, folks. Dale York, Just Fish Outdoors. And on this week's show, got a very special friend. His name is Shea Crawford, and he just returned from a trip down on Picachos. And as you guys know that listen to my show occasionally or very often, that's the place that's near and dear to my heart. And we're going to talk to Shea about his experiences and what he did and how he did and get the lowdown on Picachos this year. So, Shay, come on in here and let's talk about this great fishery they have down in Mexico on Lake Picachos.
Yeah, Dale, first of all, I appreciate you having me on to be able to share my experience. And you were a great help. And you kind of, about 4 years ago, turned me on to Lake Picachos and told me about it and said that it put it on your bucket list. And so I kind of saved up time and the finances and made it happen. But I just wanted to thank you, first of all, for being on here and then all the info. But yeah, we kind of planned it over. This we end up the dates were April this past April 8th through the 12th, and so it was me and three other friends, and we kind of planned it about 6 months in advance and got the dates, and of course kept in contact with you and Bill there at the with Ron Speed Junior Adventures, and we just continue to get information, as we continue to get closer to the time of departure. And so we we've ended up booking the flights, I believe, in November, and got that all squared away, and sent our deposit to Bill and the office there, and then this continued to. That's nice about Picot, the Ron Speed Juniors, is they have a fishing report, so you can kind of keep track of what's going on and what baits are working, and as you lead up to your trip.
Yeah,
And
that's one of the great things about the Ron Speed Jr. experience. Bill Mullins down in Texas really keeps abreast of what's going on. He's in constant contact with you as far as what's going on, what's to do. Have anything to do with your booking, and
Mhm.
of course, RonSpeedJunior.com website. They post almost daily fishing reports as to who caught what and how many. So, like you said, you can stay up on the latest trends as far as baits and who's doing what down there.
Yes, yeah, that was very helpful because like most fishermen, we feel like we got to take a whole boatload of baits and lures, and
Yeah,
and you're thinking, well, what if they're biting this, or what if they're biting that, and I may need this. But
right.
obviously you helped out, had a nice list, and we had lunch that day, and you kind of printed out uh, what you'd like to take, and different things. And of course, when you do send off your deposit, then you get the information. They mail you like a waiver and a whole bunch of information in the mail. So that's very helpful on little things that you may not think about, but uh, of what to bring. And so that was very helpful. And I called Bill Mullins multiple times before we left, and he, was real quick to answer all the questions, and was, excellent help, and uh, super, super nice guy. So that was very helpful, along the way. But but yeah, we just like I said, we booked the flights there in November, and then it was actually a better price point to fly out of Dallas than it was here in Tulsa. And so we, three of us, actually loaded my truck up, and drove down to Dallas and flew out of Dallas there. And then the other friend, he flew down and met us in Dallas. So we went from Dallas to Monterey, and then we had a short layover, and then flew into Mazatlan there, and that evening on the 7th, and April 7th, and then uh, we had our driver was in Ron Speed Jr. Nice hat and shirt, and he was waiting for us right at the exit. Super easy. And he had a nice caravan waiting for us with Coke and water, and super easy going, and then it was about an hour drive from the airport to get to the lodge.
Yeah,
So
that's one of the great things about Picachos versus some of the other Mexican lakes around that region is it's a very short van ride from the airport to the lake, as
mhm,
opposed to Guerrero or Comadero or some of the other lakes where you could be in for 2-3 hour plus van ride just from the
mhm.
airport to get to the lake. But that's one of the things that makes Picachos very user friendly.
Yes, yeah, and then
Hmm.
Jorge, the lodge manager, met us there. Even it was even I think it was the way our flights ran. It was probably 10 p.m. before we got in, a little later than we wanted, but that's just the way it worked out. And he had sandwiches for us, and just had our rooms ready. And you know, as we've talked before, you bring your own line, your tackle, and your reels, and he had a nice assortment of rods waiting for us right there that we could pick out that night and have them uh, rigged and ready to go for the morning.
And
But
boy, isn't that a stress reliever than we're trying to carry around a 7 foot rod case
yeah,
through the airport and on the
oh,
plane. And some of those airlines would gig you big time anymore for a rod case.
yes, yeah, it was a smooth transition through the airports, and they did a little random bag checks a few times, but when you told them what you were doing, they knew that you were there for fishing when they saw
Right.
all the lures you had in your bag. So
Yeah.
very smooth going through, and all the checking your bags in. So that was nice, and a couple of the guys with me had never flown international before, so they were a little bit nervous, but
Sure.
I just reassured them that everything would be okay, and I was taught a long time ago that if you don't know, then ask someone. So
Yeah.
we just found someone to ask, and it was a real easy uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
transition. So
Yeah, I've been down there numerous times going through customs in and out, and never had an issue one.
yeah,
And it's super simple as long as you fill out your little custom cards before you hit the airport, that you can get. Sometimes when you leave your departure airport, you can get those cards and fill those out, and
yes,
it just makes it so easy when you get to the Mexican airport. You just show them the cards and they go through it. And, many times you can be in and out of there in just minutes.
yes, and that's the way it was. It was very smooth. You tell them you're there for fishing, and they just get you right along your way. So that was nice, and so it kind of eased the guys that hadn't traveled as much, eased their
Sure.
mind, and
Yeah.
and then it's once you get to the lodge, we settled in and we picked out our rods, and of course, we like you told us we couldn't have line on our reels, and so we spooled everything up, uh, and then got ready for the next morning. So and it was nice. The rooms had hot showers and good beds and plenty of room, and refreshments. So it was very easy and laid back and quiet. So that was nice as well. And we slept hard after traveling all day, and
Oh, I
uh,
bet.
yeah. So they told us that they would, we'd have a wake up call. They'd bring us coffee about 5:45, and then they would get our rods and reels and tackle and take it down to the boat, and we'd meet our guide, and then breakfast was ready, and it was full full platter for breakfast. Yeah, I mean, excellent food. I can't speak highly enough of the food and the accommodations and whatever you needed. Jorge and the staff do an excellent job. They make sure you have everything you need. Um, and you just, if you need something, you just ask, and they're right
Yeah,
there.
that's one of the great things. I mean, when you wake up, they knock on your door and bring you coffee and orange juice while you're waking up, and you
Yeah,
set your rods and your tackle box out on the little front porch there, and you go down to eat breakfast, and the guides and the helpers actually come and gather your equipment and put
yeah,
it in the boat that you're going to be fishing with that day. So,
yeah.
it just really doesn't get much easier than that.
No, I mean, yeah, you're right. It it was, just everything you could dream of and more. I mean, it was just all your main responsibility is to catch fish, and
There you
that's,
go.
yeah, and that's what people come down there for. And that's what happened. And so we just have a nice breakfast and coffee, and then uh, you're on the water about 6:30, and your guides got the boat ready, and then you go out from there. And it we of course talked about tackle, and we it just we went out, and we I think we started out fishing some points, and from there in the morning, and it it was a little bit slow at first, but then it was like we just kept, the guide would, you tried, we caught a few in the morning there, and then we switched spots a couple of times, and it was every you pull up to a different point, and man, you would you knew they were there pretty quick, and
Yeah.
and it was just unbelievable. Uh, I
Yeah,
think we
the guides are so attentive too. I mean, if
yeah,
you want them to take off every fish, they'll take off every fish you
yeah,
catch. They'll do what you want them to do. If you want to take the fish off yourself, if you're in a really hot hole, want to get back out
yep,
there, they'll stand there and just help or do whatever they can. They're
yes,
very, very helpful.
yes. It was nice. I had been on some striper, and catfish guiding trips, but never bass, and um, so it was a little different. But and it took a little bit to get used to, but it didn't take long. And there was times where, you know, uh, I would want to try a bait, and I would just let the guide tie one on for me, and I would continue to fish with
Right,
the bait on, and that was nice. I mean, they're like you said, they'll do as much or as little as you want, and
yep,
uh, they all seem to know enough, English, that you could, kind of work through things. And
right,
but they were very knowledgeable of the lake, and very experienced. They all had, um, I believe, 7 to 10 years of guiding experience on that lake,
yeah.
and um,
Yeah,
it would take.
you really, you felt safe running around the lake. That lake's got a lot of timber in it in areas. And they seem to know all the roots and nooks and crannies on how to get up through that timber. And you could tell they were experienced not only in the angling part of it and the catching part of it, but also in the navigation and boat handling. I
Yeah,
have never felt uncomfortable in
no,
any of the boats that I've been in down there.
no, not at all. It felt very comfortable with their boat handling, and uh, very very laid back. They just you could just tell they've had a lot of experience. Um, I'm sure they've had a whole gamut of different clients, and
Yeah.
they can read their clients, and understand. They get a grasp of pretty quick on
Right.
experience you have, and they're just of course they just adapt well and very easy to work with.
So
And
you went out and fished the first morning, and
Mhm.
I think around 11:15, 11:30 ish, somewhere along there, they start heading back to the lodge for lunch.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So you head back, and um, of course, it's a 4-course meal when you get back. It's it's
Yeah.
it's they have fruit and salad waiting for you, and then they bring out the main course. And of course, they've had a whole uh, fridge for of any type of drink you could think of, and they're sitting there waiting for you to come back and ready
Yeah.
to to wait on you. And I think the first day we had I believe fried fish and French fries for lunch was the main course, and it was excellent. And they actually, I think they have some ice cream. I think we had some ice cream
Yeah.
for after,
Yep.
as dessert. And
Right.
so you eat lunch, and then you can kind of unwind and go back to the room, and they've got the rooms chilled down with AC uh, going, and you can kind of relax and have a little siesta, and you can kind of tell them when you would like to
Right.
come back
Right.
in the
Yeah. You set your own schedule.
yeah. and and I think each day we would come back around noon for lunch, and then go back out about 2 p.m. and then you would fish until uh, dinner was about 6 or 6:30 is where dinner was. So you had that kind of that time frame.
And
But
when you come off the water, it's dark.
yes,
You have used the whole day up when you come off the water.
yes, you're exactly right. You put in a full day, and it was from the beginning to the end. We there was I was fishing with a buddy of mine, and then uh, the two other guys were father and son, and we at least caught over 100 fish a day, and sometimes the mornings were better than the afternoons, but sometimes it didn't. Some days it didn't matter. It was just equal ex uh,
Yeah.
morning and evening. So it but yeah, I mean, come back for dinner, and I think it was we had the Mexican food night the first night, and it was homemade tamales and enchiladas and excellent guacamole, if that's what you prefer. Excellent
Right.
salsa, uh, and it's more food than I. I know I gained 5 pounds in just because the food was so good. Uh,
And they have that seafood night where they
yeah,
bring out, half the sea. You got lobster and shrimp and
oh yeah,
everything on that plate.
it was excellent. We took pictures, and we just it was I mean, it was excellent, to say the least.
Yeah.
So it was quite the experience for sure.
Yeah,
And
it's a 5-star thing, folks. I mean, if you love to bass fish, you need to put this on your bucket list and go
yes,
down and fish this lake. Spend 3 or 4 days down with Ron Speed Jr. I mean, it's a seamless situation. You just get on the plane with your tackle, your reels, and your line, and you show up down there, and they do everything else. You don't have to do anything else if you don't want to. It is a 5-star experience, and like Shea said, folks, I've been on some of the trips and caught in excess of 200 fish a day. It's just phenomenal fishing down there. Now, Shay, you were down there in April. Now,
Correct.
the weather was a little warm in April. Were you comfortable fishing in April as far as weather goes?
Yes, in the mornings, it was cooler in the mornings, and once the sun started coming up, it warmed up. But I actually wore long I to protect from sun. I wore long sleeve breathable shirt
Yeah,
and it wasn't really as bad because that it's kind of like that desert that climate where it was cooler in the evenings and then uh, warmer in the afternoons, but the humidity wasn't near like Oklahoma is. So
right.
it was definitely bearable. And you know, when you're catching so many fish, you tend not to think about the elements because you just you're you're just thinking about making the next cast and
Right,
how big's this next one going to be. And
right.
uh, and each boat has ice chest full of drinks. So
Yep.
you get to hydrate well. Um, so it was a little warm, but it was definitely not uncomfortable by any means.
Right, right. Yeah, and folks, what they use down there is they use aluminum bass boats, usually with 60 horse Yamaha motors on them, and they're 17 and a half foot. That's fairly new equipment. All electric trolling motors, the whole 9 yards, and it's very, very comfortable to fish out of. You're not
Mhm.
traveling 20 miles to your first fishing destination. You may run 5 7 minutes from the lodge to your first fishing destination, and that's about the longest run that you're going to make. So it's very comfortable to fish out of. uh, for 2 people, it's extremely comfortable to fish out of. And you don't have to worry about the equipment breaking down, this and that and the other, because it is fairly new equipment. And they got this handled. They know what they're doing, and they take care of the people that's staying at that lodge down there. What do you think your favorite lures or your favorite combination of lures were fishing down there, Shay?
Of course, we took an assortment of lures, but yeah, I kind of well, once after the first day, we kind of realized that Cincos. I mean, you could catch them all day long on a Cinco, but I was kind of thought, a jig. I fished a jig here in Oklahoma, but didn't have the confidence that I would like to have. Watched, you know, you and my dad over the years catch a lot of fish on a jig, and but I was like, I want to get build some confidence, and I threw like a 9/16 ounce jig and like a green pumpkin color with a zoom speed crawl, and the a lot of times that spike it chartreuse spike it helped a lot, and
Yeah.
and it seemed to catch a little more quality fish than the Cinco did, um,
Right.
and
Yeah.
between that and then we did have a little bit of a crankbait bite, and that seemed to be a little more quality fish when you pulled up to a point and you started getting them on that crankbait. So yeah, we got on a few points and got especially in the afternoon when the wind would pick up, and we would throw in like the Strike Kings 6XD and throwing them up on flats and just keeping them right on the bottom. And when they would come off that ledge, those fish were right there, and we we got into them pretty good with the crankbaits a few times, and then you would just you would kind of follow it up with a Cinco or jig and or even a swim bait. The swim bait was like a 4-inch Kitech, like a shad color swim bait was excellent as well with just a ball head, jig head, and uh, you would just got there was just so many fish that you'd kind of catch them on a lure, and then you would just kind of switch it up or switch colors, and then you
Right.
would catch you would catch 5 or 6 more, or, maybe 10 more. It would just kind of trying to mix it up and show them something different.
Yeah, yeah. So you were basically throwing 17 or 20 pound monofilament, and we've talked about swim baits, we talked about crankbaits, talked about jigs. Sounds like you were a little partial to jigs there for a while at one
Yeah.
point. And it's the same everywhere I fish when we talk about jigs. It seems to just produce larger fish on the average.
Hmm.
And it's the same down there. You may not get as many bites, but the
Hmm.
fish you catch are larger.
Yeah.
And it's just an amazing, amazing fishery. Did you fish topwaters at all down there early in the morning?
We did, and I had one blow up on one and miss it. One morning we went. The second day we went as far as we could back up in a creek, and they were schooling and busting on top. And uh, my buddy, he was fishing a swim bait and and was catching them every cast. And I have to
Mhm.
I have to join the fun. And we sat there in one spot and caught them every. We were doubling up, and catching them every cast for an hour straight.
Yeah.
Our our guide finally, because just started filming us. He just was watching and videoing us because we were taking the fish off ourselves, and it was just every cast. It was just, I, it just the whole trip was, it was, it was unbelievable. The
Right.
best fishing experience.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people ask me about fishing down there, and I've talked to a lot of people and tried to help people out that are booking trips to go down there or getting ready to go down there, and I know the vast majority of them, when they ask me how many fish you typically catch a day, I can tell the vast majority of them don't believe you when you tell them how many fish you on the average. Not a good
Yes.
day, not a bad day, just an average day. And I could tell that you guys were somewhat apprehensive as well when I was telling you how many fish you catch a day. But you're true believers now.
I promise you that. I'll never doubt you again. You, but I think you're like, well, I know the last trip you had was in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And and you kind of like, well, what if you begin to kind of doubt, you're like, well, what if it's not as good as it used to be? Or what if I'm not taking the right baits? And what if the weather, but it was like, you kind of, after the first day, that kind of, you're out, it goes out the window, and you're like, wow, you're just, this is everything that you had told us, and then some. And like I said, it's I'm hooked. I mean, it spoils you, and you come back home and you're like, it's just not the it's not the same.
Yeah, it is absolutely, folks, a remarkable fishery. And you don't have to be a very accomplished bass fisherman and in the techniques of bass fishing to catch fish down there. You can be a beginner, intermediate, and you can go down there and absolutely wear yourself out. And the fish are good sized fish. And it is amazing to me, and still is, just how strong those fish are.
Mhm.
They pull so hard for their size that you really truly believe you got a much larger fish on the end of your line. And
Yes, I agree.
yeah, yeah. And I talked to another one of the guys that went down with you, and Jeff Potts, and
Yeah.
he was absolutely shocked as well as the number of fish that you guys were catching, and
Hmm.
how consistently you were catching them.
Yes.
And so you like to jig, you like
Yeah.
crankbaits. Now, once
Hmm.
again, folks, these guys were down in April. I've been down in January, February, March, and April. Fished this lake here in all four of those months, and the bait selection kind of changes a little bit depending on when you go, as far as what my favorites are. But
Hmm.
what Shay's telling you in April is a very, very, very good selection of baits to take down there with you in April. So you fished what all baits did you fish, Shay?
Yeah. So we did catch a few. I caught a few smaller fish on a spinner bait, and like I said, I think we went through at least 200 Cincos, and that's no joke. We you could catch them all day long on Cincos. It's just Texas rig and um, 3/8 ounce weight, and in the afternoon, if it was a little windy and you needed a little more weight, you'd go to a half. And but so a Cinco and a green pumpkin or watermelon, and then green pumpkin jig. Um, we caught a few on a chatterbait, crankbaits. I did catch a few on a jig and spoon, even. Um, but it was like, and swim baits were, so the jig, the crankbaits, Cincos, and swim baits were our four main baits. And
Yeah.
they,
And folks, let me tell you, if you're going down there, especially fishing the Seikos, a little trick that I come across many years down there was to, and Shay alluded to it earlier, is to take a bottle of Spike at Chartreuse and dip about the last inch and a half of tail of that Cinco in that chartreuse. And I guarantee you, folks, that will increase. Not that you really need it, but that'll
yeah,
really increase your number of strikes that you get on that Senko. Just dipping that little chartreuse tail in there, that seems to really, really get them revved up.
yeah, yeah. I agree. And there was times where you'd catch them, and maybe you can't make a few casts and not get a bite, and you would dip it, and then following cast you would get a bite. It made me a firm believer in the spike it and chartreuse, and
Yeah,
uh, yeah, it made a difference. And my friend there, he started dipping his, so it we just kind of shared a bottle of it, and it definitely made a difference. And
yeah,
the guy would would dip it for you. He
right.
knew that, yeah. And so it was nice little addition
Yeah.
to give them a little different, and it made a difference.
Well, folks, we're going to get pretty close to winding this thing up for today's show. If people are out there listening or watching this and they need some information on Picachos, or just have some inquiries they'd like answered, feel free to jump on my Facebook page, or you can email me, justfish@justfish.com. That's for the JST folks. And of course, you'll be able to find the video version of Just Fish Outdoors podcast on YouTube, as well as some of the other some of the other outlets. And of course, you'll be able to find the audio version out there on Apple, as well as some of the other outlets as well. So be sure, you get in touch with me if you need some information. I'll be more than happy to try to help. And Shay, I want to appreciate thank you for coming on the show today and talking about your experience. Uh, that truly, truly is a special, special place for bass fishermen who enjoy bass fishing. and I know that you're already making plans to go back. So
Yes, sir. I'm not sure I can do it every year, but we've already made plans, maybe every couple of years. So we're looking ahead in the future, and I'm hooked, and can't thank you enough for all the help. And
oh, that's
yeah, you've been my mentor, with outdoors for a long time since I was a kid. So I just appreciate everything, and can't thank you enough.
well, it's been for those who don't know, I've known Shay's dad for over 50 years.
Yeah,
That's a long time, and so I've really watched Shay grow up, and he's
yeah,
become quite the man. He's a firefighter and a family man,
yes,
a very very religious young fellow, and he's quite the person he has become. So we're real proud of him as well. So anything you need, Shay, all you got to do is ring my bell. I'm more than happy to help.
I
So,
appreciate.
any final words you'd like to part before we get out of here?
Well, like I said, like we've talked, people that are interested, just put it on your bucket list, and if you save your money, and even just fishing around here costs quite a bit with fuel, but it'll be I guarantee it'd be a trip of a lifetime, and you'll never forget it. So I just encourage people to just take a step and to do it. And it took me 4 years, but I made it happen, I'm very thankful, and glad I did it for sure.
It was definitely worth it, wasn't it?
Oh yeah,
It's worth
yeah,
the wait. I guarantee you,
yeah,
folks. It is some kind of trip. I'm not sponsored by this fella. I have no commercial ties to Ron Speed Jr. whatsoever. I just really enjoy his accommodations and his whole package, and it's nice to get what you pay for. I mean, they take care of you top
yeah.
shelf all the way. So Shay, once again, thanks for coming on the show. Be sure you tell your dad hi for me, and we'll be catching you later. So, folks, this is Dale York, Just Fish Outdoors, saying we'll catch you later.